All right. So now as we get, oh my goodness, as we get going, I want to take this moment to see if there's anything that anyone who is joining us today from the community, if there's anything that you want to bring up that is outside of the realm of the speakers, just to see if there's any concerns that anyone has before we get started. So you don't have to raise your hand. You can just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have anything you would like to say or any questions that you would like to ask us. Check the videos real quick. Make sure you don't see any physical hands or videos. All right. So we do have several speakers today. We usually get started with Commander Vanansky, but he has not joined us yet. So we will go ahead and move right along to the PWSA speakers. So we have Beth Dutton and Rebecca Zito with us today. Beth and Rebecca, I'm going to let y'all have the floor.
Okay, Nina, thank you very much. Are you able to see my screen, the PowerPoint?
I can. Can others see it?
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. This is very timely with the storms that we've been experiencing so far this summer. So I'm Beth Dutton. I'm Senior Project Manager in the Stormwater Group in the Engineering Department at PWSA. And I'd like to let my colleague Rebecca introduce herself.
Good evening. Thanks, Beth. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zito. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Affairs at PWSA, and Beth is going to be handling the majority of the presentation tonight, and we'll both be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
So why we're here tonight is to talk about why stormwater matters. Stormwater is the #1 pollutant in urban areas like ours. And we want a city that is protected from the impacts of stormwater and the wet weather challenges like flooding that we experience in Pittsburgh. So we know from other cities' experience that by better managing stormwater, we can reduce the amount of sewage and pollution that's entering our rivers, which is a public health win for us and also for our neighbors downstream. We can work toward having fewer homes with flooded basements, which is an improvement for the health and safety of residents. And we can become a more livable city by using green infrastructure to bring environmental and community improvements to Pittsburgh neighborhoods. So tonight we're going to talk to you about the stormwater challenges that we experience, what we're doing to address them, and we're going to describe why the stormwater fee is an equitable way to help. So most regions across the country are experiencing increasing amounts of rain, and the Northeast and Pittsburgh have seen the greatest impact, as shown here with a 71% increase measured between 1958 and 2012. And as we've seen from the past few years, this is only going to get worse. So Pittsburgh averages about 38 inches of rain a year, which would be manageable if it were spread out evenly over 365 days. But with more severe storms that dump a lot of rain quickly, and with so much of our city paved over, that rain needs somewhere to go. So this graph shows the occurrences of severe storm events that have been increasing dramatically in Allegheny County from the 1950s, when there were about 12 severe storms, to the 2010s, when there were 120. This is an increase of 900%. So these severe storms are defined as events with wind, thunderstorm, hail, or tornadoes. And this is from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, NOAA. So our climate patterns are definitely changing. Stormwater often combines with sanitary sewer, which is what we flush from our toilets and goes down the drain in our sewers. And if the sewer system gets overwhelmed with too much water, instead of sending that sewage to the treatment plant to be treated, the system dumps it into the rivers and streams, or it can back up into people's basements. And it doesn't take too much to overflow the system. It can happen with just 1/10 of an inch of rainfall or less. So billions of gallons of sewage overflow into our rivers and streams every year. So our system was not built for this volume of stormwater. We have more pavement than we did 100 years ago. We have more rain and localized severe storms than the system's built to handle. And previously, Pittsburgh did not have a unified stormwater strategy. In fact, approximately a quarter of PWSA's 1,200 miles of sewers that are still in use today were in the ground by 1908. So our goal is to build a system that keeps as much stormwater as possible out of our sewers during storms, so that when it rains, we don't have basements backing up with raw sewage. So one of the ways that PWSA is keeping as much stormwater as possible out of the sewers when it rains is by building innovative green infrastructure, like what you see here at Center and Erin, that will capture and absorb and slow down the flow of stormwater. So green infrastructure uses solutions that mimic nature, and when combined with traditional stormwater solutions like underground storage and catch basins and culverts, we can address our region's stormwater problems in the most affordable and effective way possible. So today, PWSA has constructed 13 green infrastructure projects throughout the city. Projects in Sawmill Run and Whiteman Park were completed last year, and construction recently started on the second phase of Whiteman Park and Squirrel Hill. And this summer we'll begin construction on projects in Shadyside, 4 Mile Run, and North Point Breeze. And we have several more projects also currently in design. So PWSA's stormwater fee, if it's approved, is going to help fund these projects and other stormwater initiatives. It's a smart investment that will help improve our stormwater management system and reduce flooding issues. Prevention of these kinds of problems is more cost efficient than waiting to address a problem when it becomes a crisis. So to change the way we manage stormwater, we're also going to have to change how we bill for stormwater. Currently, PWSA charges every customer based on how much drinking water they use. So the meter reading determines the drinking water and wastewater rates. But this is an inequitable way to charge for stormwater because it considers the amount of water used rather than the amount of stormwater generated by a property. So starting in early 2022, stormwater will be billed differently. And this is pending PUC approval of our proposed rates. So every parcel in Pittsburgh has been mapped. And even if a parcel has no water meter, it will be eligible to pay a stormwater bill to PWSA. And this is going to be more fair and equitable than billing by meter usage, because every property will pay an amount that's proportional to the amount of impervious surface on their property. As I noted before, the fee is a smart investment. If we don't improve our stormwater management system, flooding issues will only get worse. So the stormwater rates will be based on an ERU, or equivalent residential unit. And PWSA had determined 3 tiers for all of the residential properties in Pittsburgh. The smallest tier, tier 1, is 400 to just over 1,000 square feet of impervious area. The second tier is just over 1,000 square feet to 2,700 square feet. And it's this tier 2 where over 70% of Pittsburgh residential properties will lie. So this is our base rate, and this, or in other words, our ERU. The third tier is those properties with the most impervious area, and that's 2,700 square feet and more. So all non-residential units will be based on ERU. So if a parking lot is 5 ERUs, the parking lot stormwater will be 5 times the approved ERU rate. So this gives you an idea of the stormwater rates that we had proposed to the PUC when we submitted our filing in just this past April. So for that first residential tier 1 or half an ERU, the monthly rate in 2022 is proposed to be $2.99. Tier 2 is $5.96. And tier 3 is $11.93. And for non-residential parcels per ERU, again, that would be $5.96. And as I had stated previously, these were the rates for 2022. And for 2023, we had proposed slightly higher rates as we gradually phase in the fee over time. So this graph just shows where Pittsburgh lays in comparison to our peers, first nationally and locally in the region. So, just wanted to note that all stormwater programs are different. They have unique operational infrastructure, climate, and funding challenges. And locally and nationally, the fees vary significantly. So as you can see from the graph on the left of national fees, Pittsburgh is right about the middle of the pack with almost $6 for tier 2, with Washington, D.C. well above us, and Baltimore right around $5 as well. And locally and regionally, in 2022, we start out with a very low fee. And by 2023, we're more in the middle of the other municipalities in the region as far as what we charge for the stormwater fee. So the payoff for the fee will be fewer basement backups and less pollution, so that we'll have a healthier and better Pittsburgh. So by changing how PWSA charges for stormwater, we can over time improve how we manage stormwater and provide multiple benefits for this. So these multiple benefits include that significant reduction in the amount of sewage and pollution entering our rivers, which would be a public health win for us and our neighbors downstream. Fewer homes with flooded basements, which is an improvement for health and safety of residents. Less money needed for costly flood repairs. This will make Pittsburgh more attractive to residents, newcomers, and businesses. We'll be able to make better use of our waterfront and of our rivers for recreational purposes. And this will be a boon to the community, but this will only happen if our rivers are clean. And this is a funding mechanism that truly is equitable, in which everyone pays their fair share for stormwater. So that is the end of our presentation for this evening. If anyone has any questions, we would be happy. Let me just state with this last slide, if you have any questions, please feel free to visit this page where we have frequently asked questions and more information about the fee. And this page provides my contact information at PWSA. So if anyone has any questions now, we'd be happy to talk with you a little bit more about that.
All right, y'all, don't be shy. Do you got any questions? You can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask them as you feel it.
We're also keeping an eye on the chat if you'd rather put them there instead.
And if you come up with a question later and you forget Beth's information, you can always email me and I can play middleman with questions and make sure that you get the answers that you need. So in addition to Beth's contact, I am Nina with the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation, and my email address is nina@bloomfield-garfield.org. Well, thank you so much, Beth and Rebecca. We really appreciate you taking time and coming out to speak about this rate increase and how people can be thinking about how this is going to change. And again, if anyone has any questions, and even if you think of it later through the meeting, you can always put it in the chat and I can make sure that the question gets to Beth.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Nina. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
You as well. All right. Well, next up, we're going to move right on along to Erin Clark from the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, who's going to talk to us a little bit about delivery robots. All right, Erin, are you ready?
I am. Thanks, Nina.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me join today. Presenting today, I'm Erin Clark. I'm a policy analyst with Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, as Nina said. We have been working toward a pilot in Bloomfield that I'm going to talk about today, but obviously will have an impact on Garfield as the neighbor of Bloomfield. Nina attended a meeting a couple weeks ago with the Bloomfield Development Corporation and thought it would be helpful for me to introduce the pilot to this group as well and offer kind of an opportunity to gauge interest in participating either as customers or in our working groups and kind of steering committees, or as businesses. If you have a business or know of a business who might be interested in a free delivery service for about a 6-month pilot. So I will share my screen and jump right in. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that okay. So I'm presenting essentially the same presentation we gave in Bloomfield a couple weeks ago. So apologies, you'll see the wrong date down here and things like that. We'll skip around a bit. I want to provide this group with enough background on the project. So first, what are personal delivery devices? Why are we even talking about them? So personal delivery devices are ground delivery robots that are remotely operated, self-driving, or both. So there's a picture here. If you are joining by phone or are unable to see the image, these devices are small, about roughly just over a cubic foot of the square compartment, and then they each sit on 4 wheels. They're about 3 feet tall. They have a tall flag off the top of the device, though, that allows increased visibility. So personal delivery devices, you'll hear people call them delivery robots, sidewalk robots, but they primarily operate in pedestrian areas. At times they can operate on the street. Due to the pandemic, but also just the general trend, people are traveling a little bit less and definitely ordering more goods for delivery. So this trend has accelerated the research and development and testing and the deployment of these devices. And the trend is expected to continue. So we're seeing a lot of large companies like Amazon and FedEx currently testing these devices and determining ways in which they can incorporate them into their delivery services. In Pennsylvania last year, our General Assembly passed Senate Bill 1199, which then became Act 106 of 2020. It authorized the personal delivery devices and gave sole authority to PennDOT to permit and regulate these devices. It also classified the personal delivery devices as pedestrians in our state code. which the city has concerns about. And again, this legislation prevents the city from regulating these devices to a large degree. And, oh, sorry about that. Oh, now I'm all backed up. There we go. So the law went into effect at the end of January, and PennDOT issued operating policies around these devices and an application and authorization process. So this is just a graphic from the Census Bureau that shows that kind of trend I was discussing in e-commerce. So goods delivery, we know a lot more people order food to be delivered or order goods on Amazon rather than visiting retail stores. And you'll see a spike in Q1 and Q2 of 2020 that starts to come down, but is still significantly increased over the past 10 years. So these are some examples of some of the devices that these larger companies are testing. On the left there, you'll see Prime. They're calling their device Scout. It's about the size, a little larger, but roughly the size of the KiwiBots that we'll be using for our pilot in Bloomfield. In the middle is a slightly taller, larger device that FedEx is currently testing and piloting. They're calling their device Roxo. And then on the right here is Postmates, which had a relationship with Uber, and they are also testing a delivery robot for food delivery. So the question for the city and for DOMI was, what do we do now in light of this new state law that allows these devices, knowing that this trend and acceleration toward goods delivery and toward remote or autonomous or self-driving delivery, and the anticipation that these operators could enter the Pittsburgh market in as early as the next 1 to 3 years. So what do we do now? Well, we have some grant funding from the Knight Foundation that was specifically allocated to the city in part to fund a pilot project that was designed to engage local residents around new mobility technology. So we had this grant funding and it kind of aligned well with what we wanted to do here. We wanted to explore this new technology and prepare as a community and engage with our local residents to ensure that when these future technologies do come to Pittsburgh, we do what we can at the city level based on the authority that we do have to try to ensure that those technologies reflect community input and meet actual local needs. So what are some of our goals of the pilot? We want to identify areas in which we can improve our right-of-way management to prepare for emerging technologies and for the future of deliveries. We want to take that knowledge and create informed local policies. You know, one of our concerns at the city level is that the state really passed this law without initiating any pilots or doing any meaningful information gathering. And it's resulted in a state law now and policy that we think has a lot of problems. And this pilot also allows for a controlled demonstration of the safety and accessibility of PDDs. So as I mentioned, the city won't have much control if future operators decided to enter our market. And so this pilot, because we're funding it through a grant, the city's the client, we get to set the rules, set the cadence of the pilot, and ensure that safety and accessibility are being maintained throughout. And if that's not the case, can pause or pump the brakes on the pilot. That might not be the case if Amazon decided to deploy these devices in a year. We wouldn't have the authority to tell them the time, place, and manner in which they can operate here, for instance. And so this gives us a rare opportunity, I think, to kind of work with our community and have this controlled demonstration of an emerging technology. In addition to that, these are delivery devices. We know our local small businesses have really struggled through the pandemic. And so this is going to provide an opportunity for us to partner with them to provide a completely free delivery service for the 6-month pilot. So we're partnering with a couple local businesses in Bloomfield right now, and hopefully partnering with some nonprofit organizations, including the Carnegie Library of Lawrenceville, but then would serve Bloomfield and potentially Garfield for this pilot. Also our Rec to Tech program in the city, we're going to use the devices to do some engagement with youth to let them kind of see behind the technology and interact with the devices. And another organization in Nina, you might be able to clarify. I know at the Bloomfield community meeting, Nina had spoken up, and I wasn't sure if that organization actually sits in Garfield or Bloomfield. It's kind of right on the line there.
So that's like part of this whole conversation is, so a symbol is like on that line, like where technically they sit in Bloomfield. But if you talk to them, they say we're in Garfield, and we consider that Garfield. But because of our squishy community boundaries, there is this opportunity for Garfield to take part in this, because the sorry, Erin, I'm gonna, there's a charging station and it's gonna be in Bloomfield, right? So it's up to 1 mile of that charging station could be serviced by the delivery robot. And Pittsburgh is so small that if you were to sit that charging station in the parking lot of the Bloomfield Farmers Market, you could get something delivered to Fort Pitt Park because that's within a mile. So that is like why I was very excited to bring Erin to this conversation, because there are businesses on Penn Avenue who are interested in being part of it. And I was interested to see if community members would then be interested in having deliveries come to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So this next slide says why Bloomfield. It should say why Garfield. I'm sorry, I didn't update that. But essentially, this entire area, and to Nina's point, the kind of squishy neighborhood lines there, and even where they're not as squishy, obviously we shop in our neighboring neighborhoods and walk and commute and all of those things. So there's a lot of overlap. And there's a diverse demographic in Bloomfield and Garfield. The commercial districts, so on Penn Ave and Liberty, have fairly wide sidewalks by a lot of other standards of neighborhoods. If you think about the Strip District and other areas, we have some space on Liberty and Penn to pilot these devices. We have really engaged community groups like this one, and there's small locally owned businesses interested in the delivery service. And so to Nina's point as well, we have an opportunity here to set what we would call like a geofence location for this pilot. And that just means we can work with KiwiBot, the provider, to limit the area in which they serve. So if there's a lot of hesitation from the Garfield residents or businesses, on the one hand, we could define that line quite clearly and the devices would not operate beyond the neighborhood line. On the other hand, if there's interest in using this service or businesses using this service, or even just interest from the residents to engage with this technology and provide feedback to the city. So that just means maybe looking at it from a distance or passing it occasionally when you're out walking around. There's an opportunity to do that here, but we wanted to kind of hear from the community and give you guys a chance to give us your feedback. So KiwiBots in particular, why have we chosen them? They're fairly small. Most of you hopefully were able to view the picture earlier, but as I described, they hold about a cubic foot of cargo. They're slow. They only go a maximum of 4 miles per hour, which is about the average pace of a pedestrian walking. And generally, I was actually out with one on Liberty yesterday, and it was much slower than I was walking. And so, you know, these are not going to be zipping down the street by any means, or the sidewalk rather. KiwiBot's really willing to share data and work to share that data via MDS, which is kind of an open data sharing platform. And so we'll be able to collect that data in real time and have it visualized regularly so we can share that information with the public and have that to document as learnings. They're also willing to participate in public education and engagement. So as Nina mentioned, Assemble is interested in bringing some of the robots to their summer or fall camps with youth and teens. And so KiwiBot's very willing to do that. We also are exploring similar ways to partner with the library in order to kind of promote their summer reading and all other reading programs in the next 6 months. So I think I'm gonna skip ahead a bit here. This kind of gets into like the actual data and research plan. But I wanted to briefly mention, we're working on an Engage PGH page. Hopefully some of you are familiar with Engage. It has a lot of information and interactive pages on a lot of programs and projects that are going on with the city. So I'm hoping this page will be live by Friday, but if not, immediately following the holiday weekend coming up. So there will be surveys, an opportunity to put comments and a Q&A section on that website, as well as general information about the pilot. We also have an email address set up, AV, which stands for Autonomous Vehicles, at pittsburghpa.gov that you can submit questions to. And we are really committed to responding to questions and concerns within 5 business days that are urgent or aren't a safety or accessibility threat. And KiwiBot's also, very committed to that engagement as well. Their full-time employee that'll be here during the pilot got here on Saturday, so we're welcoming a new short-term resident to the area. So yeah, we're really excited to work with the community. If there's any interest in sitting on kind of our steering committee for this project, we are looking for residents who are interested in doing that. That role would essentially be to meet with some regularity during this pilot period to provide feedback or to answer or address concerns or questions that we've heard from the community. And you would do that with Nina and with Bloomfield Development Corporation and other representatives of the community. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's any interest. Just quickly, I know I'm going over, I'm sorry. We are going to do a mid-pilot evaluation and a final evaluation report. So there will be evaluations during and then after this pilot. So we can share that with obviously the community, as well as hopefully state regulators and other decision makers on how these kind of this specific emerging technology and emerging technology in general have local implications and how we can work to alleviate those if these technologies are coming. Oh, well, here's a quick look of the specifications. I can organize these slides and send them over to Nina as well so that she can share them. But yeah, just a quick look. They are fully electric. Oops. And that is all for me. So I really appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions anyone has now, or you can feel free to follow up with me directly.
Thank you so much, Erin. All right, y'all, it's question time. Who's got some questions that they want to ask about these delivery robots? You want to know if it'll go up the hill in the snow. What you got?
We want to know that too. They tell us,
Right?
but I want to see it.
I really want to see it too, like in action. I'll be the one at the top of the hill, like recording it for prosperity. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'm going to check the chat real quick. All right, nothing in the chat. Linda, do you have a question?
Yeah, what are those things waterproof? Because we tend to be dry 1 minute and the next minute it's pouring down rain. So would that affect how the thing works?
Yeah, so they are waterproof generally. They can operate in the rain. They so a remote operator controls them. So they've got several cameras and sensors on the devices. So they can see in real time, nothing's recorded, but they see in real time. So they're relying on those cameras and sensors. So if the weather is so severe that their ability to see through those cameras diminishes and they cannot like control the device, they will pause operations, but can operate through some pretty inclement weather. They're operating like in Miami and some areas that deal with, you know, more hurricane type storms. But yeah, they can operate in water. I would say if we had severe flooding as well, that would be a question of like, you know, whether or not they could operate in like somewhat deep water, but generally they can operate in most of the weather we experience on a normal basis here.
And what about little kids? They can't accidentally run over kids. We have a lot of kids up on this street, and I just hate to see a kid get run over by one of the things.
Yeah, no, great question. So these devices are quite small, obviously, but about the size of a toddler, for instance. And so the remote operator is overseeing them at all times. So I was out with a device on Liberty yesterday, and there were a couple kids walking that were interested in the device. They stopped and were asking questions, and the device stopped, and it shows like emoticons on its face. So it can give like heart eyes or smile at kids to kind of express emotion. So it's interesting, but in any event, from my personal experience and then what we've discussed with the company as well, they are operating at such slow speeds and have a person overseeing them at all times that they would not, you know, there's not a situation where they would unintentionally be able to kind of run anyone over. So that is not something we have to worry about. However, you know, there's a lot of other questions we have at the city that we hope to address in terms of safety and accessibility during this pilot. But yeah, hopefully that answers your immediate concern. Did you ask another question? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
No.
Okay.
Oh.
I wasn't sure either. So I'm going to do a quick recap, make sure that, you know, I understand and that everyone else, you know, can digest everything that we said. So the state has legalized robots, y'all. They're coming. They're going to be on the street in the next year. All different companies will have their own. Is that right, Erin?
I wouldn't say the next year.
Okay.
The timeline is unclear because we don't know when they would choose to essentially deploy in the Pittsburgh market specifically, but we know that they're deploying in other areas. Our anticipated timeline is as early as 1 year, but that's on the very early side.
Right.
Up to like 3 or 4 years into the future. So yeah, we're not trying to be alarming. They're not coming tomorrow, but we need time at the city to prepare for this as a community. And so, you know, it is kind of a very timely conversation and pilot.
How long before them things can fly? How long before them things can fly?
There's also remotely operated or autonomous delivery drones being tested, not in Pittsburgh, but in as close by as Cincinnati. I think they're being tested with Kroger. And so another conversation for another day, but these things that felt very far in the future are not as far in the future as they used to be, I'll say. So we can follow up with another conversation about that sometime.
Okay, so I think for those that are on the conversation and have feelings one way or another about like, yes, I want a robot. No, I don't want a robot. You can either my dog is so annoying. No, I don't know if you can hear her. You can message us, either Erin, the Engage PGH website on the topic, or you can email me directly. And again, I'm Nina, Nina, at Bloomfield-Garfield.org for those of you who may be listening in or listening to this later. you can just check in with us and let us know your thoughts on this. We do still have some time to decide, and we're going to take information from everybody to see if this is or isn't something that Garfield is feeling. We do have businesses on Penn Ave who are interested in it. So it's kind of a conversation of whether or not Garfield residents in the neighborhood want to see them coming up the street, because they can go on sidewalks or the road. Is that correct, Erin?
Generally, these, since they're so small, PennDOT prohibits them on the street in most cases. They're not allowed to operate in the protected bike lanes either. So they will primarily be on the sidewalk and in crosswalks.
Okay. So do you want to be able to get a robot coming up the sidewalk and delivering to your house?
Do they need a smooth surface? Our sidewalks, especially on Atlantic here, our sidewalks are worse than
That was my
potholes.
question too, Linda, was like, how does the robot
Also, we're gonna go.
navigate that? Yeah. How does the city get feedback back about that? Like, this sidewalk is bad?
Yeah, so that's part of the benefit of the pilot as well. They can operate. I was out in even the very like kind of rough sidewalk conditions that we have in certain areas. The robot, when I was with it yesterday, had no problem navigating. There was even a curb cut that we saw yesterday that had a hole in it. I'm not sure. It was not good. I sent it to our traffic team to try to get that resolved. But in any event, it actually was able to still navigate up on it. I looked at it and I was like, oh, no way it's going to be able to clear that. It was able to. So they can get, stuck, I'm sure, if there's like significant issues. But because the remote operator is looking at the road before, like, they're navigating around things generally. But also, Nina, your question, yes, they'll let us know if they do experience areas where they can't navigate or the device gets stuck for some reason. And then we can send out Domi's team to kind of look at the surface or to collect images. And it'd be a help for us to kind of monitor the right-of-way conditions.
Is it possible? So I understand, like, if they alert you to, if it's like we got stuck, but if it's just like really bad, but they make it, does that get noted too?
Not really, not unless the device has an issue, but obviously they're operating in several of their cities and we're not the only ones who are interested in collecting that information. If these companies are going in the future to be out operating in our public right of way, we want to figure out how can we benefit from them. That's one way. If they can get infrastructure information to us in real time, that is like a huge lift that we don't generally have capacity to have like real-time data or information available. So that won't be possible for this pilot in particular, but it's definitely a conversation we're having with KiwiBot and we'll have with future operators as a kind of public benefit if we're going to welcome them. We unfortunately don't have the ability to block them from coming in, but if we're going to welcome them, we want them to provide us with some benefits as well. So that would be one of them.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions now about the robots, or want to say yes, robots in Garfield, no robots in Garfield? You can feel free. No? All right. I don't want y'all to be shy. This is, but I'm sure that when people watch the video later on YouTube, if you do, again, if you feel one way or another, you can contact Erin Clark or myself, Nina Gibbs. And again, my email is nina@bloomfield-garfield.org. All right, we're going to keep on moving. Next, we got Tosh Chambers. Thanks, Erin. And Tosh is going to talk to us about Mobility Hub that is on Penn Avenue and what that means and how you can use it and when. All right, Tosh, you're up.
Hey there. Thanks so much for the introduction, Nina. So glad I can present today. I hope everybody's staying kind of cool in their houses. I know I'm trying to, but no, I'm happy to present really kind of generally on the program that Domi is introducing called Move PGH. And just to take a step back, my name is Tosh Chambers. I also work for DOMI alongside Erin, and typically in a similar kind of field of working on kind of new and emerging mobility. And I should be sharing my screen, and you can see it. Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Well, yeah, I'll touch on the Mobility Hub and as a part of this program, and this will be pretty general overview. So, let me know if you have any questions. Probably at the end of the presentation would be the best way to do it, but if you have any during this presentation, feel free also to drop them in the chat and we can talk them through at the end. But great, yeah, I wanted to start off by kind of talking about shared mobility in general. And, what is that? Well, it is really kind of what it sounds like what it is. It's, transportation services that are shared among users, either concurrently or one after another. So a bus or a train is an example of shared mobility. There's several people sharing that one vehicle. Also, bike share, like the Healthy Ride that's down on Penn and Winebittle, is an example where you're not riding the bike at the same time as other folks, but it's for rent for a short amount of times. You use it and then park it, and then another person may come along and use it after you. Well, we have a number of different types of services, such as those, shared mobility services in the city. And, I have a few of them listed down here. You may have ridden a Scooby and had a lot of fun with that. You probably have taken an Uber or Lyft at some point, or at least heard about them. Maybe you know about Zipcar, where you can rent a car without really talking to anybody. And just use it for a really short amount of time, and that's kind of best for maybe short day trips, or even just runs to the grocery store if you don't have a car. So really, all of these different modes, all of these shared mobility options are really crucial to have in a city. Of course, where would we be without public transit, which can take people around, if they don't have a car, and can be really reliable for certain situations. But we've done a lot of research on shared mobility here in DOMI, and we know the benefits of having them, and kind of really I'm thinking somewhat shared mobility in addition to Port Authority and public transit. Things like Healthy Ride and Scooby, they can be really helpful in closing transportation gaps. And those transportation gaps can be like all sorts of things, really. If say, you're not too close to a public transit line, you can utilize something like a Healthy Ride to kind of take you from the bus to your home for that first and last miles, is what we call it in transportation planning. But all of these options can also make transportation more affordable than owning a car, which can be quite expensive with all of the costs. They can work in combination with the transit system. Like I said, Zipcar is really helpful if you're, maybe you have a lot of stuff you need to take with you, or you want to go outside of the city where there's no Port Authority service. Those options can be used in combination with transit to just make it easier to not own a car, which is really one of the main benefits of just having shared mobility in the city here. But we've done plenty of research on just, acknowledging shared mobility here and looking into how we can make improvements to just make sure that it works better or to its fullest ability and really meets the needs of our residents here. So, what are the things that we need to do to make sure that it kind of works best? We need to make sure that cities such as, the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure are in the driver's seat, so to speak, in kind of determining what are the ways that these services kind of operate, and making sure that kind of meets the needs that we have and that our residences have. Of course, or maybe not of course, what we've realized is that, instead of having all of these different services kind of operate in their own way, in their own silo, having them kind of collaborate together and link up kind of helps to realize a kind of a result that is, greater than the sum of all parts, where, if, maybe transit isn't the best all the time just as on its own, but if you're combining it with maybe taking an Uber or Lyft every now and then, or some of these other options, that can really have some great outcomes for folks, and is better than them kind of competing for just one certain space, because all of these companies kind of acknowledge, you're not going to ride a bike for every trip. You're probably not going to take an Uber or Lyft for every one of them. They kind of need each other to kind of be successful in a way. Also, we want to ensure that these options are accessible by all and for every need, that they're truly, serving the needs of our residents. And we want to make sure that all of these new options, which can maybe be somewhat intimidating, are just seamless and easy to use for everybody, and really don't have any barriers to using them. So, in the name of all of those kind of goals, we've decided to launch this program, Move PGH, which unites all of those different mobility services that I've mentioned, and really gives Pittsburghers greater access to really everything they need, and hopefully while reducing costs, congestion, and pollution here in the city. So here's a look. I know there's a lot to look at here, but here's everybody, every organization that's involved in this project. And at the top, you can see, Pittsburgh Mobility Collective. Who's that? That's kind of the group of companies that composes the service, kind of the offering of Move PGH. So it's kind of, you can think of them as kind of the partnership, and they're introducing Move PGH. But at the left on the top, you can see DOMI as the city is kind of defining the rules and priorities for this project. So we're kind of on top in a way, making sure this is directed to meet our residents' needs. And we're kind of supported by a few other organizations that work in this kind of innovative mobility space. But in the middle, you can see all of the different kind of options that can get you from A to B, that are, maybe some are more familiar to you than others. But these are just things that you can, rent a car or a bike or a scooter for a short amount of time, or maybe helps you find someone to carpool with, or something like that. All of these different options are partnered together in this Pittsburgh Mobility Collective, or PMC, to make sure that we have all of these, that everyone's traveling use cases are met. And then on the right, at the top, you can see Transit, which that's an app that is helps you basically have all of these different options kind of available and visible in that one app. So it makes it much more seamless and easy to know. And it can help with just riding the bus. It shows you where the buses are, when they're shows you how long you'll be waiting for each bus, and it is truly helpful in navigating that system. Underneath, you'll see SwiftMile, and that they've been involved in helping to create mobility hubs, which I'll talk about shortly here. Is everybody still with me? I think I'm losing service.
We hear you and you're doing good.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I was being told my connection is weak, but I'll just keep rolling. Thanks. Yeah, so here's just kind of a look that we like to kind of show of how this kind of illustrates, you wouldn't use one of these options for really all of your use cases, for different distances. If it's a short one, you'd probably walk. Longer than that, you may want to take the bus, or maybe you'd be willing to kind of take a bike. But if you have more cargo, it probably makes sense to have your own car, and you can rent one using a car share. So, this just shows that there's kind of many overlapping parts, and, it's important to have all of these in kind of a transportation ecosystem so they can work together. And on the right, you can see you would use the transit app to kind of organize all of these and help plan your trip. Or you can visit a mobility hub, which I'll look is right down there, which can hopefully have really all of the options you would need right in one spot. So, this is just another example of like, for each one of these modes, you have like a certain instance that you would decide to use one of these, and it is kind of up to what we want to do is kind of have all of these options up to the user so they can kind of decide what's right for them based off of where they need to go, how much they're willing to spend, and yeah, can hopefully meet their needs in that way. Here's kind of an illustration of what I was talking about with the transit app, where you have like all of those options just at your fingertips in this one app. So it kind of creates a seamless experience and helps you get around and plan for that just using this one app. And here's kind of a look of the basic of how much each one of these would cost. I want to underscore that it can be truly really expensive to own a car, depending on what you have. It may be as much as $20 per day, maybe more. So we look at this program as being an equitable one that can maybe, for one, provide resources for those who don't have a car, or for those who are struggling to kind of pay for having their own car, have this as a workable alternative to owning a car. So yeah, and here's a look at the mobility hub that I mentioned, and you may have seen one of these on Penn Ave and Winebiddle. And I should say it may look kind of derelict there with the screen not being on. That's because there was some complications in connecting it to power, and those are being figured out right now. We actually will be doing a slight amount of work there to kind of run power from a nearby street light to connect and make sure that this is kind of completely operational. But as you can see, this has a couple of things. It has a screen for one, and that'll have a couple of functions where it'll be able to demonstrate all your transportation information. It'll show you which bus lines are close by. It'll tell you when the bus is coming and how far away it is. It'll also let you know, where the closest healthy ride is and how far away the closest Uber or Lyft is as well. So, just has a lot of helpful information on there. It'll also have advertising on there as well to kind of finance the equipment itself. But as you can see, there's also scooters, kind of standing kick scooters that are charging nearby. So these hubs are kind of serving that purpose of being like this docking spot for e-scooters, which I haven't mentioned, but Spin is the company that, let me go back actually really quickly. Spin at the top is the company that's introducing those electric scooters, which works very similar to Scooby, where you can find one, you can ride it where you'd like, and just park it and pay kind of by the minute how much you use that scooter. So those scooters will be introduced to Pittsburgh actually pretty soon. We're excited to announce that they'll be kind of gradually being introduced in the month of July, and you'll possibly get to see them in Bloomfield mid-July or late August. But these hubs are valuable because they're kind of helping to organize and charge these scooters and just be a reliable place to find them when you need to find them. I should say, we've kind of gone through various efforts to find kind of the best place to place these mobility hubs so that they're kind of already aligning with other transportation options. So the place at the hub at Penn and Biddle is nearby the Healthy Ride there. It's also there are fairly well utilized bus stops on either side of the street. It's kind of also a congregating place. There's a bike rack nearby. So we're trying to create these areas that just have all of these options, and maybe some other nice things such as in a little coffee shop. Maybe you would ideally have a zip car there as well. Maybe a coffee shop, some greenery, some bike racks, other valuable things, all really in this one kind of central spot that's quite reliable. So through us introducing these charging station mobility hubs, we're trying to create this kind of ideal congregating place for mobility. So I'm going to wrap up here. I wanted to say, just like, if you're going to remember anything from this presentation, I want you to potentially check out the transit app, which I mentioned. It's super helpful if you're looking to get around using transit or any other option. I want people to anticipate scooters that are coming. You'll definitely hear more about those as they're launching. We'll do a big press event, and you can stay tuned there. And then also the mobility hubs, just kind of being a thing throughout the city. You'll see them nearby, but there will also be a mobility hub on Liberty in Bloomfield that we're going through a feedback process right now. And elsewhere throughout the city, we're trying to really spread those out to help connect people. But yeah, I would say at this point, please let me know if you have any questions. I would also point you to our project website, which is at move-pgh.com. There you can find more information about this project and how we've conducted it. There's also a place you can take a survey about, what you think Move PGH should be. So we'd really appreciate any feedback that we can get there. But yeah, with that, I'll kind of stop sharing and open up for questions.
I have a question. Garfield has at least two jitney car services. Has there been any effort to reach out to those services? One's on North Fairmont in the 500 block. The other is about half a block away on Colombo Street. They provide an awful lot for a neighborhood where about half the neighbors don't have access to cars and live on a steep hill. They provide a vital service in terms of bringing the groceries home. It's a pretty fundamental service. I don't sort of, I'm not sure whether there's been an outreach to those entities, but there should be in inner city neighborhoods to sort of bridge that gap between the two Pittsburghs.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really welcome this question, and we've actually heard a number of different neighborhoods kind of mention jitney services as being, very valuable to the community. So we're collecting various kind of contact information for the various jitney services that we're hearing about, and looking to reach out to them pretty soon to know how exactly is the best way to incorporate them into this project. But it's something that we've talked a lot about. What we'd like to do, is potentially just make it easier for folks to get connected to those services, and then also, maybe incorporate them into the mobility hubs, if that makes sense. But yeah, you raise a great question, and I would kind of want to see if you or someone else on this call may be able to give us the contact information for them.
Typically, you find the phone number at a supermarket on a bulletin board, or word of mouth, somebody hands it to you. Because they're technically illegal operations, they don't advertise their presence, but almost everyone in the neighborhood knows they exist. And I can literally, I flyer these areas and can say, hi, my name is, and we'll chat with people. So it's simply knowing where to find them. But as I said, there's one in the 500 block of North Fairmont and one in the 5400 block of Colombo Street in Garfield. Literally half a block apart. I don't know the proprietors that own them. I can probably look up the owners of the property, but they'll deny any illegal businesses going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically because they don't want the Department of Revenue to find them or the city tax office to come after them and chase them down. But they provide an extraordinary service to people who don't have access to transit. And when Port Authority stopped servicing Garfield Heights, we were left with a dilemma there that how do you carry the groceries home from the supermarket if you live on the top of the hill? It's a challenge. So again, it's a fundamental issue in terms of the two Pittsburghs, and it's an important one to sort of keep in mind. Unfortunately, they have to be invisible for financial reasons, or else they'll be penalized financially.
Yeah,
their model will break if the taxing people start going after them.
Right. Yeah, and that's something we've been totally aware of. That
Right.
There's kind of a reason why they might want to avoid talking.
They can offer lower services to their client base because of that business strategy. Should we call it? It's raw capitalism at its finest.
Yeah, and I should say, just clearly speaking, we as DOMI, it's not our intention to crack down on this service at all. Our primary goal is to, provide and facilitate transportation, particularly to those who, have, particularly need it the most, and or may not have a car in situations like this. So all that to say, yeah, we would love to kind of make a connection and facilitate them in a way that really makes sense, and certainly, not kind of step on them in any way. So yeah, we're kind of in that phase of just kind of collecting information and figuring out what's the best way to like make that connection without like scaring anybody off. But yeah, we'd love to hear more about what this project could mean for them.
I'm curious. I see Linda on the call. Linda, do you know any of the contact numbers for the car services in Garfield? The jitneys? You're muted.
What? I don't use jitneys. I can't afford jitneys.
Okay, y'all. Linda does have another question in the chat about what about affordable mobility services for seniors? And that kind of segues into my question too. Can you tell us a little bit like how like how the fee services work, and like if I walk up to the machine, like if I don't have the app and I'm just walking up to it, what will my experience be?
Yeah, sure. So I'll answer your question first, Nina. So the mobility hub kind of kiosk itself is not really interactive. It's not like something that you would put money into or navigate on, but it just has like a really helpful snapshot of all of the transportation information in the area. As far as like paying for all of these services, it kind of, either you would be able to have it in the transit app, and I should say Port Authority will be transitioning to, they'll be rolling out digital ticketing just within this app. So if you have a credit card or debit card, you could connect it and just use this app to pay. But that will also be offered to the spin scooters that are here. And then Healthy Ride won't have it as right away, but they're actually, you may know, they're transitioning to a different type of fleet that has electric bikes. And when they make that transition, really, they will be available for rent and payment within that one app. Outside of those, you'll be able to see them in the app, but you'll be kind of linked to a separate app where you just put in your payment information and work out of that separate app. But we're working to make sure that Zipcar and Scooby, they're all kind of represented in this one transit app to make it pretty like seamless and everything, kind of your one-stop shop. The question about the affordable mobility services for seniors is a great one. So what we would say is, I forgot to mention, Access is the paratransit here in Allegheny County, and they're also partnered. That really just applies to just a population of folks with disabilities that will be able to depend on Access. But we're working on incorporating them into the app as well in a way that makes sense to book your travel. Because I know that can sometimes be quite complicated with Access. The other thing I would say is that, this is a pilot program that is going to span at least 2 years. And over that time, we're going to be continuing our outreach to the community and kind of knowing what options, what kind of services we need to see in each neighborhood. And what we've been hearing a lot is that like a van service or like a shuttle service might be really valuable in certain neighborhoods. I think it would certainly be really useful in Garfield. And we're kind of looking at incorporating another entity into the PMC that can service that need and be that kind of option that is maybe more nimble than Port Authority and less expensive to operate, and can kind of help make those connections that these other modes can't currently meet. So, just to say, the PMC is kind of a living group. We're looking to improve it constantly. So that's one that we've heard a lot about, having more services for seniors, and we'll be sure to incorporate options that meet those needs.
You brought up Access, and I just wondered if DOMI has any leverage to make Access in Pittsburgh work more efficiently, more professionally. I had the experience, now this was 5 years ago, of using Access both in Pittsburgh and also in the Oakmont area, and the experiences were like night and day. And so, I mean, I would hope that there would be ways to make it more professional, more friendly, more pleasant.
Yeah.
And in Pittsburgh, you couldn't even 100% count on them coming, and they might be 3 hours late. If you weren't standing there, they would just leave instantly. You might put up with that if they were on a tight schedule, but they're not on a tight schedule if they're 3 hours late. So anyway, I just wanted to put that into the mix.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback and something that we've heard before, frankly. And I would agree that that's just awful that, you know, you can't have that same level of reliability as most other folks would have with something like Uber or Lyft. I'll tell you what we've been kind of working towards and considering is Access is getting a little more technologically savvy in having their service be available to kind of schedule via an app. But what we would like to do, and maybe I'd be curious what you think of this, is that we do have this other entity, Waze Carpool, who you can schedule trips with, and that would work pretty similarly to how you schedule Access. So we're looking to kind of incorporate Access into this app and it be a much more seamless experience, at least for scheduling. And hopefully, you know, that would that also allows you to kind of track the vehicle within that app. So it would be more reliable and you'd be able to communicate with the service through that app. So, you know, that's something that we've been kind of plotting out, and, you know, we only hear sometimes that would be a really valuable thing, but I'm glad to hear from you that could potentially be an improvement, at least to how Access is managed now. Right. But yeah, certainly on our minds as one of the core things that we want to improve for shared mobility here.
It'd be a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
Right. Yeah, I should say, you know, we are supported in this project. There's not taxpayer dollars that are going in to kind of fund many of the parts throughout this project, but there is grant funding that has come in through Arcane Mellon that allows us to do some of this outreach, incorporate the mobility hubs, and make certain improvements to key services if, you know, they're very tactical. So just so you know, there's some amount of funding, but not a ton of funding, but we are able to, when we identify kind of pilots and projects that we'd like to test out, we can utilize that funding to kind of, you know, conduct that project.
My sense was that it was less to do with funding than just with their customer service attitude, which I think comes down from management at top to the people at the bottom. You know, my mother-in-law was at a nursing home in Pittsburgh for a while, then she was at a nursing home in Oakmont. So that's why we had the experience to use the two services. And it's more the customer service attitude of the people. So maybe you could use that money for incentives for customer service type things, because I think it's a personnel and attitude phenomenon, partially.
That's good feedback. You know, I hadn't heard that about Access, but we can I can certainly follow up with our contact there, Christine, and make sure we're making the right improvements there.
Thank you so much, Tosh. I do have a question for you, or like maybe we'll do a quick recap. Mm-hmm. So there's a hub on Penn Avenue that will really be the home for scooters. And the scooters aren't here yet. They'll be here soon. And can you tell us a little bit about the scooters then? Like how fast they go and like how like people might see them in the neighborhood? Because I think for some, this will be the first time they're hearing that scooters are coming.
Yeah. No, great question. And this is something I could talk about for quite a lot, but I'll keep it to less than a few minutes. But yeah, the scooters themselves, like I said, they'll work very similarly to Scoobies. They're standing scooters. They have a speed limit of 15 miles per hour kind of built into them. Um, and no, they wouldn't go any faster than that. They wouldn't be operated on sidewalks at all. We're making sure that that they stay off there completely. And there's a few kind of new technologies that we can use for scooters to detect when they are on sidewalks. So we'll be excited to test those out in the future. We'll have folks operate them in the street as a bicycle should be operated. They would be parked in the street as well, and very similar to the Scoobies, kind of in legal parking areas perpendicular to the curb. But in certain areas throughout the city, we'll be designating parking spots where, if you're in a commercial area, like on Penn Ave, you couldn't just park this anywhere. You would have to end your trip at either a mobility hub or these designated parking spots that will be about every block or so. And you physically wouldn't be able to end your trip until you're in that spot. We have plenty of kind of levers as the city to make sure that these scooters are being distributed, throughout the city and throughout all parts of the neighborhood, so that you wouldn't be too far away from one if you should like to use it. There's also been analysis to understand like where the areas of high need are, based off of Port Authority's equity index. We've used that information to kind of require the scooter companies to have a certain amount of scooters in each area throughout the city, kind of according to that index. There's more information. There's a spin access program, so that if you don't have a smartphone, if you don't have a credit card, you could still use this program. And if you qualify for any kind of low income programs through the state or federal, you would be able to apply for this and get half off trips if you sign up. So I think I covered a fair amount of those things. And then last thing is that the city has a platform where we'll be kind of monitoring the kind of locations of where the scooters are. No like personal information associated to those. So, just want to put that to bed, but this is all kind of anonymized, and all cities who operate these scooters use this. But we'll be able to track where the scooters are to make sure that the company is kind of meeting our needs, meeting residents' needs, and actually going where they should be going and not going where they shouldn't be going.
Great. All right. I have one more for you. Okay. Or two.
Go for it.
All right. So is there a weight limit? And also, like, how does it work in the winter? Again, just like the robots, I'm sure like everyone wants to know, like as an adult person, if I get my butt on this scooter in the winter trying to go up the hill, am I gonna make it with my backpack of groceries, or am I gonna be sad about my life decisions?
Yeah, great practical questions. I can't say I don't know the weight limit, but I think what I've seen a lot is 300 pounds is kind of the suggested weight limit, but I could kind of follow up on that. How it would work in the winter is we would take most of the scooters off of the street, but there would still be a small amount of them, just because we were expecting people to not use them as frequently, but we still want them to be an option. You know, but yes, you could still ride them in the winter. We would recommend not riding them in inclement weather, as we would with any kind of transportation. But yeah, that is pretty akin to how other cities have managed scooters, even cities in kind of colder climates that are akin to Pittsburgh. And yeah, we've asked about the hills as well, but the scooter company is not too concerned with the hills here in Pittsburgh, even though we have the steepest street in the world. But the grade that is kind of the suggested limit is 15%, which is pretty steep. I probably wouldn't take it on Canton Ave, but you know, you could definitely take it up Garfield. And you know, they've managed these scooters in places like San Francisco, which have kind of notoriously steep streets as well. So we're confident everything will work out.
Great. And so one more, once I get to the top of the hill, there's not a mobility hub up here.
Yeah.
Really not like parking spots. What do I do with it when I'm done?
Right. So you don't need to park these at mobility hubs, at least outside of commercial areas, like I was saying. So all you would need to do is find a good parking spot, you know, any legal parking area, as long as it's, you know, you're not too close to the ADA ramp or a side or a crosswalk. You know, you would be able to drop it off there. So it's kind of free range. You don't need to end them somewhere like you do a healthy ride.
Awesome. I think that answers all the crazy questions I figured.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked them, because yeah, there's a lot to know, and
it is. I know it's coming, and it's going to be so different for everybody, and so I really do want to make sure that people, you know, know it's coming. And I do want to go ahead and put my pitch in while you're here, Tosh, and say that we would love it, you know, maybe like a healthy ride station or a mobility hub at the top of the hill, like at the new Fort Pitt Park. That might be nice, like get on your bike and ride around the park and drop it back off. So
yeah, no, that's a good
plug in your ear.
good point. And you know, we can make sure, if you have like particular locations throughout the neighborhood that are, you know, it would be great to have something here. Whether or not we could introduce the equipment there, we could certainly like make sure that that's just a spot where the scooter company puts a scooter, and can hopefully be kind of a reliable spot to get that option. But yeah, I love the questions. We should have a frequently asked question sheet on our website very soon, because there are plenty of frequently asked questions.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure these are all ones that you've heard of. I'm sure I've asked you these same questions myself in a meeting previously.
I welcome them anytime.
But so we really appreciate you speaking to us, Tosh, and I appreciate all the speakers speaking with us tonight. It looks like Commander Vanansky was not able to make it, so that's okay, because it gave us more time to talk about robots and mobility hubs and scooters, so that worked out. I did read the crime update for the week that he sends out, and there was one stolen car that wasn't an accident after being stolen, but there was no violent crimes, so we'll take a win when we get it. I am very excited for everyone to have joined us. This is being recorded. It will be put on our YouTube. For that, I want to make sure that I tell everyone again that I am Nina Gibbs. I am with the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation. I am the Community Engagement and Planning Specialist. And you can reach out to me about anything that you heard about here tonight, or anything that you really think about in Garfield. Like if you're like, oh, I just want to talk to someone about this or that. I'm the person you can reach out to, and my email address is nina@bloomfield-garfield.org. And I am going to put my contact up on the screen just real quick for everybody, and I'll post it in the chat just in case anyone needs it. And then we'll be done, and everyone can enjoy their evenings. All right, can you see it on the screen, y'all? All right.
Nina's the one that gets everything done. So when you need something done, you go to Nina and she's gonna make it happen.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey. And that actually reminds me, I'm so glad you said that, not the compliment, but so that I can introduce you. Dr. Stacey Ford is on the call with us, and she is one of our board members for the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation, and we are recruiting for our board. So if you want to be a voice for Garfield, send me an email, and we would love to have you. Dr. Stacey, you want to say anything real quick?
You know, we would love to have you. It's great to have community members that care about their community and want to make a difference and make a change. So please, if you have any questions, you can ask Nina. Nina can put my information out there. You feel free to call me up directly. And if you want to ask me what it's like, I know we're all in a time where we're like, oh, another meeting. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do that. But, you know, there's always a creative way to do it when you know that your voice counts and it matters for others and for yourself. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you. All right, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful night. That's it. We did it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night.